Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday to you. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're watching this as a playback video. And as always, thank you to my students for joining me on this wonderful Thursday. Today is Thursday, June 11th, 2020. And today we are going to be reviewing some concepts that we have already gone over as it relates to the fundamentals of math series. So again, I wanted to end this on a high note simply because I know that math is in all of the GED exams. And so I wanted just to take a couple of weeks out to make sure that your math foundation is very strong. So in the event that you would like to take a the math practice GED exam, or if you feel confident enough to say, hey, I think I can go ahead and do it, you are more than welcome and inclined to do so. But remember, math is also found in science and social studies as well, with graphs and reading charts and interpreting data and things of the nature. So actually what I'm going to be doing tomorrow on my Freebie Fridays, I post videos on Freebie Friday videos from the students' request, and I'm going to be talking about how to read a graph and how to interpret information from a graph, as well as measurement. So I'm really, really excited about that. And I'm just, again, thankful for everyone that's been watching the videos, doing the work that goes along with it, and really just making sure that you understand what it is that you're doing. Because again, when the testing centers open back up, hopefully sometime in July, I really want you all to go ahead and sign up for the test and take the test and pass it on the first try, because we've had time to study and we've had time to practice. We've had time to do certain things to prepare us for testing. So I pray that you all have been using your time wisely and making sure that you all have been watching the videos and also making sure that you've been doing the practice assignments that go along with those videos. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to look at converting fractions, decimals, and percents. That's something that we worked on yesterday, or we talked about yesterday, and I emailed a sheet to you, and I want to just go over a couple of problems just to make sure that you all know what you're doing and that you're confident in knowing what you're doing, because confidence will take you a long way. And as always, I'm going to make this bigger because if I can't see it, I know you can't see it either. Okay. Now, again, we're just going to do a couple of problems. Again, just making sure that we know how to follow the rules and the regulations of converting fractions, decimals, and percent. All right. So let me pull up my toolbar. Okay. All right. So we're going to do the first four that we see here, simply because I think that'll be easier for us. And plus, that way, if you're watching this as a playback video, you can understand how each section works. Okay, so for numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, it says write each as a decimal. So what we have is we have a percent. So for numbers 1 through 4, we are going to, here's in my face, we are going to convert the percent to a decimal. And remember, when you're converting a percent to a decimal, you are simply going to move your decimal 2 places over to the right, I'm sorry, to the left, excuse me, and you're going to drop your percent sign. Now, again, we talked about yesterday the importance of place value. Round to the nearest thousandths place, okay? And again, if you need a refresher on place value, I'll be sure to leave some information for you in the pinned comment section, some worksheets, handouts, and things like that. So that way you can have them for yourself. But let's look at number 1. Number 1 says 90%. So if I were to convert this to a decimal, I will simply, and I'm going to rewrite it here so that way you all can see it. Because 90 is a whole number, that means my decimal is going to start behind the ones place, which is the 0. And I'm simply going to move it 1, 2 places to my left. And when I do that, my answer is simply going to be now it says round to the nearest thousands place. Because we only have a tenths place and a hundredths place, this answer would suffice. Okay. Do not make the mistake, or I guess the habit, of adding another 0 there. I guess you technically could, but to be on the safe side and to err on the side of caution, you want to just go ahead and use the numbers that are already provided to you. So in this instance, my answer would just simply be 0.90. Okay. Now I'm going to scroll over, if I can. Okay, there we go. To number 2. Number 2 is the same thing as number 1. Draw my arrow, and I'm going to simply write out. Okay. We have someone else that's joining us this morning. So as always, I would like to acknowledge them. Good morning. Okay, maybe that wasn't someone. Maybe that was just a figment of my imagination. But if someone else did join us, good morning. And again, thank you for joining me. All right, so we have 30%. And I am going to move my decimal again. My decimal is behind the ones place, and I'm going to move it 1, 2 places over to the left. So when I do this, my answer is going to be 0.30. Okay, do I have a question? Remember, if you have a question, please feel free to unmute yourselves and simply ask. Okay, I guess there are no questions. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and keep moving. Remember, class today will not be too long today. We're just going to do a quick review over fractions, decimals, and percents. If you missed class on any time this week, please go back to my channel and make sure that you are watching those videos. Okay, that's very important. All right. So now for number 3, what we're going to be doing, we're going to be doing the same thing. So remember, math is a repetitious or repetitive subject. You're going to be doing certain things over and over and over again. The difference is simply that you're going to apply them in different ways. Okay, so it's very important that you make sure that you understand the process and you know when to use certain rules for certain things. Okay, that's very, very important. All right. So now what I'm going to do, I am simply going to look at number 3, and I have 115.9. Now that's normally how we would read it, but mathematically speaking, you will read this as 115 and 9/10%, because the 9 is in the 10th place. Okay. All right. So now what I'm going to do, I am simply just going to rewrite. I'm going to rewrite my decimal. Now, as you can see, I went ahead and dropped the percent sign, just making sure that because when I convert my percents to decimals, that's what you have to do. So I went ahead and I dropped it. Okay. And now I'm simply just going to move my decimal 2 places over to the left. 1 and 2. Okay. So when I do that, okay, I'm not quite sure if I believe we did have someone join us this morning, but please make sure that you put your audio on mute and your camera is off.
I'm trying to find out, do you want the computer? Oh, I'm doing it on my phone.
Okay. Hold for one moment, you all.
Yeah, if you can use the computer for to do your work.
Okay. Let's go ahead and.
I'm trying to give you the computer. I don't need it. Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. There we go. Okay. So again, if you are joining me, please make sure when you come into class, make sure that your camera is off and make sure that your audio is on mute. We want to make sure that we cancel out any background noises. Okay. Now, me as the presenter, I do have um, I do reserve the rights, I guess, if you will, to put you on mute. And so, but again, that takes away from the learning. So again, when you enter class, just make sure that your camera is automatically off and that you all put your sound on mute. Because again, we want to make sure that everyone that's watching the playback video can hear me clearly. And if you do have a question, you are more than welcome to unmute yourself, but just make sure that you put yourself back on mute. Okay. Now, when I move my decimal 2 places over to the left, this is my answer. Now, it is totally okay for you to have 2 numbers as your decimal. It's okay for you to have a whole number and 3 decimal places here. That's totally okay. So do not be alarmed at the fact if you see a lot of numbers in your decimal. That is quite okay. Okay. So this would be my answer. 1.159, or if I were to read this mathematically correct, it would be 1 and 159 thousandths. Okay, because remember, this first number 1 is represented as a whole number. Anything after the decimal would serve um, as a different type of place value. So your 1 here is your tenths place, your 5 is your hundredths place, and your 9 is your thousandths place. Okay, so when it says round to the thousandths place, we already have that here. So this would be our final answer. Okay, now for number 4, again, do not be alarmed at the fact that there's only one number. You still would follow the same rule by moving your decimal place 2 places over to the left. Okay. Now, because I only have one number, I am simply going to move my decimal 2 places over to the left. This invincible hump right here serves as a placeholder for 0. So what I would do is add a 0 and then add my decimal point. So my final answer would simply be as a decimal. Okay. So I just went over how to convert your percents to decimals. Okay. So remember, when you're converting percents to decimals, you're simply going to move your decimal 2 places over to the left, and you are going to drop your percent sign. 2 rules, very easy. It wouldn't matter how many numbers you have, you will still follow that same rule. Okay. Now, this is the same sheet that the sheet that I'm working on. This is the sheet that I emailed to you on yesterday. So if you did not have an opportunity to finish this worksheet or did not start on the worksheet, this is a great opportunity for you to go ahead and do so, as I will be going over a couple of more problems from this particular sheet. Now, our next set of directions tell us to write each decimal as a percent. and it says round to the nearest tenth of a percent. So again, you must make sure that you know how to round and you know your place value. So let's look at, and as always, we're going only to do just the first four. Okay, so we're going to work on numbers 9, 10, 11, and 12. So here I have 0.452, or mathematically speaking, that would be 452 thousandths. That's how I would read the problem mathematically. Now remember, to go from a decimal to a percent, you're going to do the opposite of what we did at above. You are going to move your decimal 2 places to the right, and then you're going to add your percent sign. So for number 9, I have 0.452, and my decimal is here. So I am going to move my decimal 2 places over to the right, which is be 1 and 2. And when I do that, I have 45.2, and I'm going to add my percent sign. Okay, so remember, your percent sign kind of looks like a slanted division sign. Okay, which is interesting because percent is another way that you can write fractions. And we all know that fractions are nothing more than division problems. So again, make sure that you catch those connections as we discuss, as we talked about division, as it relates to fractions and even percents. Okay. All right. So it says round to the nearest tenth. So this will be my final answer because again, 2 is in my tenths place. So my answer would simply be 45 and 2/10 of a percent. Or you can just say 45.2. Okay. Now, I'm going to scroll over just a little bit because I want to make sure that I have some room for number 10. Okay, again, I am simply going to move my decimal 2 places over to the right, and I'm going to add my percent sign. When I do this, oh, and by the way, number 10 is read as 6 thousandths because again, this 0 is in the tenths place, the second 0 is in the hundredths place, and this 6 is in the thousandths place. So when I read that as 6 thousandths. Or again, some people would say 0.006. Okay. So I am going to follow the same rule. I am simply going to move my decimal 2 places over to the right. 1, 2. And when I do this, my answer is going to be 0.6%. Okay. Now, very quickly, as it relates to unnecessary zeros, you would not write this answer in this way. Because the first 2 zeros are not needed. You only need 1 0. Or if you are a person that really, don't really care about zeros, so to speak, you could simply just put your decimal and then the number 6 and then your percent sign. Different math books do things differently, but the rule still applies. So either answer at the top of what I have here, 0.6% or 0.6% is acceptable. So you would not need these extra zeros. That's the reason why I'm scratching them out, because they are what we call unnecessary zeros. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to scroll back over for number 11, and I'm going to do the same thing. So far for numbers 9, 10, and now 11, I have not deviated. I have not changed. I have not done anything different. I simply just moved my decimal 2 places over to the right, and I added my percent sign. That's all I did. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing for number 11. I'm going to move my decimal 1, 2 places over to the right. And when I do this, this will be the same format as we saw in number 10. Okay, so that's my final answer, 0.2 or 2/10 of a percent. Or again, you can go ahead and, you don't necessarily need the zero if you don't want to have it there. And you can just simply put 2 and then your percent sign. So either answer would be acceptable. But again, you want to make sure that you are mindful of what the questions are asking you to do. Okay, so if they say round to the nearest tenth, you give them the nearest tenth. If they say round to the nearest whole number, that's what you give them as well. So make sure that you're very mindful and that you understand what the directions are asking you to do. And then for number 12, again, I am going to do the same thing. I'm going to scroll over just a little bit so that way I can have a little room. So again, I am going to move my decimal 1, 2 places over to the right. And when I do this, I now have gone from a decimal to a whole number. So I will not have a decimal in number 12 as I did for numbers 9, 10, and 11. And then I'm going to add my percent sign. Okay, so I also want to say this, and I think I made mention of this in yesterday's video, which, by the way, if you have not watched that video, then this may sound a little foreign to you, but please make sure that you watch yesterday's video as I do a thorough breakdown of how to convert fractions, decimals, and percentages. Okay, now, again, numbers 9, 10, and 11, they were already decimals, but when we converted them to a percent, it still had a decimal in the answer. That's normal and that's totally okay. So sometimes when we convert certain things, we may end up with a decimal in it, or we may have a fraction or something. That's totally okay. I just want to put that out there. So do not be alarmed. It's totally okay. But for number 12, if I can find my cursor. Okay, so for number 12, when I move my decimal place 2 places over to the right, I ended up with a whole number simply because my decimal is now behind the number 5. Okay, so because my decimal is behind the number 5, this lets me know that 5 is now a whole number. So I would not have a decimal in this particular answer. Okay, that's very, very important. Again, making sure that you know your place value and making sure you know how to read place values correctly and how to write them. Okay. Okay. Okay, so that's the end of that particular page. All right, and now we're going to, all right, scroll up. All right, so now what we have, and again, I'm only going to be focusing on 17, 18, 19, and 20. Let me see if I can make that. Okay, that's might be too big, but I think that's okay, perfect. All right, so what I now have is a percent to a fraction, okay? All right, so percents to fractions, because we start off with a percent and they want us to write it as a fraction. So remember, going from a percent to a fraction is also very easy. You are simply just going to put the number over 100 and you are going to simplify if need be. Okay, so for number 17, I have 25%. I am simply just going to put 25 over 100. 25 over 100, I know that I can reduce that to 1/4. Now, I believe I do have a video if you need to watch a refresher video on how to simplify fractions. I do have a video in the Fundamentals of Math series where we talk about all of the ways of how to deal with fractions, from simplifying them to adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, how to convert them. So please make sure that you watch the playlist of the Fundamentals of Math videos on all things fractions. Okay. Now, number 18, I have 70%. So I'm going to do the same thing. I am simply just going to put my number, which is 70, and I'm going to put that over 100. Okay. Now, this can also be simplified. Make sure I have enough room here. Okay. Now, this also can be simplified. 70 over 100. I know I can simplify it starting with 2 simply because 70 and 100 are even numbers. Okay. However, I am going to go ahead and just divide by 10. Because I know that 70 and 100 are multiples, are a part of the multiples of 10. So when I do this, I simplify my answer to 7/10. So this would actually be my final answer. If you leave this answer the way that it is, you may actually get it wrong. The reason why is because with fractions, you must simplify. So although 70 over 100 is the correct answer, you have to make sure that you simplify your fractions. Some fractions will not need to be simplified. So you just have to know which fractions to simplify and which fractions not to simplify. Okay. Now we're going to scroll back over to number 19. And number 19 is 93%. So again, I am simply just going to put my number, which is 93, over 100. That's all I'm doing. Just simply putting my number over 100. Okay, that's it. That's all I'm doing. And in this instance, I believe 93 over 100 cannot be simplified because 93 and 100 have absolutely no numbers in common. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to scroll back over again to number 20. And I will go ahead and take a look at number 22 because number 22 looks very unique. Okay. Now, number 20, I have 58%. Again, I am simply just going to put 58 over 100. And again, because I know that 58 and 100 are even numbers, I'm going to go ahead and divide by 2. Okay. And when I do this, I come up with 29 over 50. So this would be my final answer, 29 over 50. Again, if you leave it at 58 over 100, that simply means that you found the answer, but you did not complete it all the way, meaning you didn't simplify. So again, make sure that you are always doing the best that you can to simplify your fractions. Okay, that's very, very important. All right. Now I want to take a look at number 22, simply because number 22 is something that you may not have ever seen before. And I want to explain in the best way that I can the answer for this one. So we have 66.6%, and there is a line over the 6. Excuse me. When you are dealing with decimals, there are two types of decimals. You have decimals that stop, and you have decimals that go on for forever and ever and ever. They don't stop. So anytime you see a decimal and it has a line over that number, that simply means that that number is continuously going on for forever and ever and ever. Okay? Because we really don't have time to write 6666. We don't have time to write numbers continuously. Okay? So that is what this line over this particular 6 stands for. Okay? Now, what I have here is 66 and 0.6%. 66 on this side is my whole number. This 6 is represented as a decimal. So if I were to, and let me go ahead and write that. Okay, a whole number. All right. And then this number, the third 6, represents a decimal. All right. So when I write this as a fraction, this is what I'm going to do. Again, you have to know your place value. The place value is definitely going to be a game changer when it comes to you converting. So because 66 is my whole number, I'm simply going to write 66 out because that represents my whole number. The 6 is represented in the tenths place. So when I write this as a decimal, I'm sorry, as a fraction, excuse me, I'm going to have 6 over 10. Because when I read this decimal, it is read as 66 and 6/10. Okay. So again, 66 is my whole number and 6 over 10 is my fraction. But I can reduce 6 over 10. So when I do this, I'm going to divide by 2 because remember, 6 and 10 are even numbers. And when I do this, my final answer, make sure I scroll down just a little bit. All right. My final answer is going to be 66 and 3/5. Okay. So again, you must know your place value. That is so, so important. And I keep reiterating that because, again, when it comes to your science, social studies, science or social studies GED exams, you may have to convert some of these numbers. And so sometimes they may write it out, sometimes they may not. But it is your responsibility to make sure that when you see it, you recognize, okay, I'm dealing with a decimal. Or, okay, I realize that I am dealing with a percent, so I must convert it to a fraction, or I must convert it to a decimal, or whatever the directions tell you to do. Okay, that's so, so important. So please, if you are not quite sure on place value, I will be sure to leave some information for you in the pinned comment section once this video has been posted. Okay, and we are actually almost finished, so I will be finished in the next 10 minutes, and then I will open up the floor for any questions. Okay. Okay. All right. Write each fraction as a percent. Use repeating decimals when necessary. Okay, so now we are going from fractions to percents. So in yesterday's video, I remember saying the way that you go from a fraction to a percent is as follows. You're simply just going to multiply your fraction by 100 over 1. Okay, now if your fraction has the denominator of a multiple of 100, such as 2, 4, 5, 10, 20, 25, and 50, then you would simply just multiply that by whatever other number would give you 100. So I'm going to actually do number 27. Okay. Yeah, number 27 is the only one that I can do this way. Okay. So I'm going to start off in blue. So I'm going to follow the rule. And I'm going to say 1/2. And I'm going to multiply that by 100 over 1. This is reinforcing multiplying fractions. So remember, when you multiply fractions, you are going to multiply the two top numbers together. And you are going to multiply the two bottom numbers together. And with all fractions, make sure that you simplify. So half of 100 gives me 50. Now, there are no repeating decimals here, simply because 50, when I divide 2 into 100, or half of 100, that gives me 50. So there are no repeating decimals. So therefore, that is my final answer, which is 50%. Okay? Now, the other way that I could have done this, I'm going to use the color red now. I know that 2 is a multiple of 100. So that means I can find a number that if I multiplied it by 2, it could give me 100. And because I know that that is 50, I am going to multiply my bottom number by 50 as well as my top number. And when I do this, I'm simply going to have 50, because 1 times 50 is 50 and 2 times 50 is 100. Okay, now because they want this in a percent, I am simply just going to write 50%. Okay, so just remember, there are two ways that you could potentially solve number 27, but also remember that is not going to always work for some bottom numbers, just like numbers 28 and 29. I can't do what's in the red for numbers 28 and 29 simply because the number 8 is not a multiple of 100 and the number 3 is not a multiple of 100. Okay? So for number 28, I am simply going to multiply my fraction, which is 1 over 8. I'm going to do that by 100 over 1. Now, 1 times 100 we know is 100. And then 8 times 1 gives me 8. Now, 100 over 8, that can be simplified. I have to scroll over to make sure I have some room so that way everyone can see it. Okay, so when I'm going to go ahead and divide this by 4. And when I do this, my answer is going to be 25 over 2. Okay. Now, I have to convert this to a percent, but I have a fraction right here. So now what I'm going to have to do is I am simply just going to divide 25 into 2. Now, if you have a calculator, you can just simply punch in 25 and you can hit your divide button and then the number 2, and it should give you this answer, 12.5. Okay. And that's your answer, 12.5. Okay. All right. Same thing with number 29. 3 is not a multiple of 100, so I only can multiply 2/3 by 100 over 1. That's going to give me 200 over 3. Now, again, when I put this in my calculator and I put 200 divided by 3, it is going to give me, I know it's going to give me 66.6%. And of course, my 6 is going to be repeating. Okay. Now, again, I'm not quite sure if you all will be able to see my calculator, but if you do have a calculator on your phone or if you have one handy, you can try this out with me. Okay, so I'm not sure if you all could see that, but if you can't, I'll just walk you through it again. Remember, when you're working on the calculator as it relates to fractions, you're simply just going to put in your number. So I have 200 and I am dividing that by 3. And if you can see it, you're going to see 66 point in all of these sixes and a number 7. They had to round it at some particular point because the sixes go on for forever. So hopefully you all can see this in the playback video. But if not, you will simply just put in your top number, which is your numerator, the divide button, and then put in your denominator, hit enter, and you should be able to get this answer. 66.66666666. And if you see a 7 at the end, that's simply because they had to round it. Okay. All right. Now, for number 30 is actually really, really easy. It's probably the easiest problem that's probably on this worksheet. So I'm going to say 1 over 100, and I am going to multiply by 100 over 1. Now, we know anything multiplied by itself would be that same number. So I know 100 over 100 that gives me 1. So this is my answer. My answer is just simply 1. Okay. All right. And I think we have one more, or that might have been it. Yep, I think that was it. Okay, neat. All right. So what I want you all to do, if you have not had the opportunity, I want you to go ahead and I want you to work on the rest of these problems. Now, again, it's very important that you make sure that you have watched the video from yesterday. Again, making sure that you understand all the rules and the regulations as it relates to converting fractions, decimals, and percent. Okay, so if you have not had an opportunity to watch yesterday's video, please do not go any further. I need you to go back and I need you to watch yesterday's video. Again, I'll probably leave it at the end of this video under the Fundamentals of Math playlist. And so that way you all can get a refresher and you can get you can revisit all of the things as it relates to the fundamentals of math. Again, I named this series The Fundamentals of Math or simply put pre-algebra, simply because you're going to need the foundation of everything from the fundamentals of math series to be really strong and to be comfortable in doing the higher level math. Okay, so when we talk about slope and we talk about the quadratic formula and talk about systems of equations and things like that, these are the foundations that you are going to need. Otherwise, if you venture off into higher math, it may be challenging, it may be confusing for you, or you simply just may not understand it. So again, I encourage you, please make sure that you rewatch all the videos. I did, for the most part, leave practice sheets in the pinned comment section. So that way you all can print the sheets if you have to or need to. Or if you want a hard copy, you can have it. Again, very, very important that you make sure that you watch the videos that I post on my channel. If you have not subscribed to my channel, shame on you. Shame, shame, shame. Please make sure that you subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, so that way you can get fresh videos from your favorite nerdy educator. That's me. Okay. I'll also be posting up announcements and updates as I get them. So again, if you want to know when the testing centers are open, if you want to know when school is going to open back, or if it opens back at all, please make sure that you are subscribed to my channel. Because again, moving forward, that is the only way that you will be able to receive announcements from me instead of individual texts. Okay. I do believe that that's very important. The lines of communication, making sure that they are still open. Okay. So the time now is 9:53, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share. And hopefully, if you all have any questions, this is an opportunity to ask. Or if you think of a question, if you think of a question, that comes to you after the broadcast is finished, you are more than welcome to email me. You can text me if you have that information. Okay, so I'm going to say this. This has been a wonderful year working with each and every one of you. I am grateful for the opportunity to have been your English teacher / math teacher / science and social studies teacher, just your everything, I guess. But most importantly, I could not have finished out this year without you all. So I humbly, greatly appreciate each and every one of you for your time, your due diligence in doing the work, just making sure that you understand how these things work. And so that way, when you're ready to take your test in any of the subjects, you will be ready, you will be confident, and I know that you will pass it on the very first try, because that's how much faith that I have in you. I did send out an email to everyone that is on the video right now. So if you are watching this as a playback video and you did not receive the email, please make sure that you contact me if you're one of my students. If you're just, a random person watching my video, then this won't apply to you. So again, make sure that you check your emails. Make sure that you have been subscribed to my channel, so that way you can get updates and announcements and notifications in real time. You don't have to wait. When I know something, you're going to know something, okay? So again, this has been a wonderful year working with you all. I really humbly appreciate your flexibility, your time. We championed through this together. And again, I could not have done this without you. So just know that you waking up early in the morning and logging in or calling in, it has not been unnoticed. Okay. I see all, I know all, and just know that I am very proud of you all. And again, if you have any questions, please make sure that you email me, reach out to me, and make sure that you read the email that I sent to you on yesterday, because those changes will be going into effect starting this Monday. Okay. So with all of that being said, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. and making sure that you all have an opportunity to rewatch this video and do the work in its full entirety. So this is not a goodbye. This is more of a see you later. Okay. So again, Ms. Hampton loves each and every one of you. Thank you so much for a wonderful year. You have made this nerdy educator very, very happy. And I love each and every one of you. There's absolutely, emphatically nothing that you can do about it. And until next time, I don't know when the next time will be, but until next time, I love you. Y'all have a wonderful and blessed Thursday.